Welcome to the 20-Minute Talk Show. I'm going to be introducing Kim Schneider Malek, the founder of Family Enterprise Alliance. So we only have 20 minutes. Are you ready? Time starts now. Thank you for joining us on our talk show today. So glad you're here. So the first question I have for you is, what inspired you to start your company consulting family businesses?
Well, I was...
And please explain more about your company as well.
Sure. So I am in the field of advising to family businesses and families who have wealth and are trying to work together. And I got into that field because I worked with my dad, who had the same type of consulting practice. I started with him about in the late 1990s, and as we went into the decade after decade, he said, at some point you need your own succession plan and you need to brand your own professional expertise in what it is you do. So I ended up about, in 2009, starting my own business, also in the same field of working on the behavioral and leadership side of helping families around the world navigate the transitions they have to make to go from what they are today to what they want to be as an enterprising family in the future, as a family business in the future. And so I had terrific foundation being second generation in a family business. And then he's still working, and he said, I want to keep this core business that I built up, but you do work in a different area. It's your turn to go live the entrepreneurial life and do it your own way. So that's how I got started in it, and have been doing that since.
Oh, fantastic. Wonderful story and how that got started. So what were the challenges you faced as you started your business?
Oh gosh, I had this insulated world, and part of what I always say to my clients is, how do you live more awe and less absolute? And so I realized that I was living a pretty absolute world by being guided by someone else. And so some of the challenge was just figuring out, what do I need to do to build the infrastructure, and what if nobody calls me? What if they're only wanting me because of my dad? And what if, all the what ifs that I deal with in my clients, I dealt with in myself, and just certain areas that I'm great at and certain areas that I'm really weak at, and how do I blend them, and how do I be honest with myself to say, gee, this isn't your forte, go get some help, and have someone else do this work that has to be done. So I call that confident vulnerability. So I think the biggest challenge was being willing to be vulnerable, and then also trusting my confidence and keeping myself on track to go. So that was probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, that would be a big challenge. But what I'm wondering is, how do you stay confident and keep yourself on track, no matter the challenges that come in? Because I know they'll continue to face them. That's
a great question. And my philosophy is, if I ever feel so confident that there's no room for improvement, it's my time to do something else. So every week I assess myself, and did I live the week true to my own self and true to my own values, and did I build the relationships the way I want to? Did I take the risks that I want to? So I'm always trying to stay out of the field of doubt and stay in the field of discovery, and those two counterbalances, if you will, are really helpful, because it lets me say, what else do I need to know? What else do I need to learn? Who do I need to ask a question of? Where do I need to explore developing further abilities or skills? And one of the harder things of that is, what happens when my my strongest skill set all of a sudden becomes a liability? When the strengths maximized become a liability. And that was a rude awakening for me, because I realized, wow, I used to be what I thought was pretty stellar in a certain area, and now I'm stale in that area. And that is my big challenge, is trying to stay astute and intuitive to what those are.
Wow, wonderful! Wow, what a wonderful story! What you've gone through to keep yourself going. So how did you build your client base?
So the client base, some of them I had worked with when I was in my dad's firm, and many of them most of them come to me through word of mouth. I meet with professional advisors who help the same kinds of families, and I meet with, I teach professionals, I teach in university systems, I speak quite a bit on topics that are relevant to these types of families, and it seems that, people come to me when they're in pain, for better or worse. There's some sense of pain where they don't quite understand how do they go forward, or what does the journey look like, or what are the alternatives that they can experience. So it's usually the person in pain picks up the phone or contacts me through email or has an advisor who refers them to me, and I've been very, very lucky to not have to leverage my very poor marketing skills.
That is great. So how did you build those relationships with your clients?
So that's a great question. And for me, the most important thing I can do is have a relationship, a chemistry. And I have chemistries with clients that we may not even like each other, but we respect each other and we value the contribution we each make to moving towards a common goal. And so for me, whenever a prospective client comes my way, I always say to them, we need to have what's called a chemistry meeting. We need to be able to come together so I understand what your group of people, your system looks like, and you understand my style, my personality, my approach. I don't charge clients for that meeting. I think it's really important to explore the capacity to build a productive dynamic and a constructive, productive relationship. And so that's usually what I do to start that relationship. And then because I'm in very personal space for all of them, I ask them about their individual goals and experiences and attitudes and confidences, and I'm exposed to quite a bit of individuals and families that would be considered very confidential information, if you will. So it's important to me to initially build a very strong relationship and let them know who I am and what I do and why I do it and how I do it, and that I may see them on the street and may not recognize them because the person that they're with is, or may not acknowledge them, if you will. The person that they're with may not know that they're using me or my services. All things that build trust and help reduce resistance and help individuals and groups and families understand that I'm there to collaborate with them, to make life and life's experiences valuable. And I lastly tell them, they may come to me in pain and in conflict. I am not able to take away their conflict, but I'm able to shed insight onto what people and groups do to navigate conflict differently so that it brings leverage to them and value to them. And so I think that builds the relationship and trust in me.
Wow, so very important to build that type of that relationship and that reciprocity.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what are some of the failures as you look back that you would like to share with us?
Oh, wow. You said we only have 20 minutes, so I will share briefly. But there are many, and I operate in my mind on what I call failure bounce, and how do I make sure when I have them that I have enough energy left to be resilient. Some of the failures that I've experienced is certainly when I am not able to help a family feel that they got traction. I can't do the work for them, but to me that feels like a failure. There have been times that as an entrepreneur, I haven't followed through in the way I wish I had on prospective clients. And instead of being honest with myself, saying, why am I resisting this opportunity? I drag my feet, and that to me is certainly one that they don't appreciate, one that I don't appreciate, but to me is a failure. And I always try to make sure that when I have a failure, I find the seed and put the seed in the ground to plant a root, because from it will come something very powerful for me, and I'm confident of that. But experiencing the failure is quite challenging, and because I'm a sole practitioner, right? because I don't have someone there saying, wow, you really messed up, didn't you? So I spend a lot of time in front of the mirror asking, what did I do differently? What could I do differently?
That is true. We do need to learn from our mistakes so we can move forward and improve for the next time. What do you love the most about what you do?
Oh, wow, that too is a fantastic question. What do I love about what I do? I love...
Yeah, I mean, and definitely give us all the time you want to share.
Yeah, sure. I am so devoted to the health and welfare of families who share big decisions together. And I call them enterprising families. But for me, to see a family that doesn't feel aligned come together, put on the table the issues that they're facing, be willing to be confident, be willing to be vulnerable, really vulnerable, and to allow me to participate as a facilitator of change, that to me is, my dad always called it the Mary Poppins effect. That to me is a feeling that I get that if I could help them find space for greater health as a family, and in doing that, if I can help the individuals in that system feel like they're thriving and they're flourishing and they're making decisions that are whole for them as individuals, but are part of a collective purpose, whether they're a family or an organization in a business or a group of advisors working on behalf of a family, then I know I've done good work for them. And I get that feeling of wow, that we all feel better, we all are richer in our life experience because of what we did together.
Oh, amazing. I could see how what you love to do what you do so fits who you are as a person.
Thank you.
So who are the role models that have inspired you? Who do you look up to?
Well, certainly my father. And professionally, he's been an entrepreneur multiple times. He built and started an accounting firm that became quite large in his hometown of Denver, Colorado. He took tremendous risks, always dedicated to his values and virtues, and so I learned from him what that looks like. My brother and my sister are both extremely entrepreneurial and committed to doing something that contributes to the collective good of society, so I look to them both as mentors as well. My husband's an entrepreneur and taking great risks every day, so he and I often share experiences, and he has certainly guided me. And then I teach at the University of Denver, and the students that I teach in their learning quest serve as mentors to me in that way. I also teach advisors around the world to do with the work I'm doing and to hold space for the perspective that I bring, and their curiosity mentors me as well. And within the field, there have been people who are really dedicated to this field. I happen to be in one field, but any entrepreneur is in a field where there are trailblazers and thought leaders who come together to say, what more should we ask ourselves? And there are several. A woman named Jane Hilbert Davis has been a tremendous contributor to the journey I've taken and the path I've taken. And then I look to people I don't know. I look to people who are out there who live their life in a whole variety of ways. I took a college course from Elie Wiesel, and he always shared with this small cohort of students that the most powerful thing in life is to question well. And so I took that literally and figuratively, and in my mind I always have a well, as if it were a water well, a well of questions that I should be asking myself and others. So he was a mentor, well, not for entrepreneurship, he certainly was a mentor for character and constitution that made me a risk-taking entrepreneur.
Wow. I've got so much I could learn from you. So what do you do outside of your business? I know you've got your professional life. How do you balance family and business? And what do you do outside of that even?
Well, balance. So sometimes I feel a little seasick when I'm trying to balance because there's a lot to try to balance. I have a phenomenal family. I have 3 children who are a set of twin boys who are very active in their primary years and a daughter who's 11. And I realized, unfortunately, after you asked about mistakes and failures, so I realized that I often felt like the old proverb of the shoemaker's kids wear no shoes. My biggest worry was I wasn't paying enough attention to my own family in the way that was important. So we now cut out time in our life to have shared experiences. We create our own family vision and mission, and do things that I forgot to do with my own family, but I think I do fairly well with other families. We have a lot of activities that we do together, and then I spend a lot of time with my extended family. I'm quite close with them, and we ski and we bike and we travel the world together, so that's always fun. And then I lately have been really focused on trying to understand what drives me in terms of being an individual and the passions, so that my children see me pursuing life, and whether it's the disasters I create in the kitchen, but I do love to cook despite those disasters, or whether it's trying something new. I'm taking ukulele lessons with one of my sons, and just trying to push myself outside of constant focus on business, because I believe that can serve me well for only so long. It's not sustainable. So just keeping that balance is a constant concentration.
That is true, to have a balanced life and do what you do love to do and share that with your children. Very true. That is wonderful to see that, and it's wonderful to look up to you to be able to take that and you could also pass that on to your family, your next generation.
Right, to do that.
Correct. What's your biggest fear that you've had to overcome?
Oh, my biggest fear that I had to overcome? Well, I think one of them, I don't know if it's the biggest, there's many, but one of them certainly is that people trust me to the level that they trust me with what they trust me with, which is their emotions and their raw sense of self. And that, to me, is a big risk, is to be able to walk into that space and try to help them navigate it, because I become their partner. I always equate it to another risk that I took. I'm horrified of heights and I'm horrified of water. And so to address that, I took up scuba diving, which is definitely challenges both of those. And I'll never forget, I went down 150 feet when I could, because you could, and then came up and realized what I could achieve. But that, to me, is a risk, just because my fear was so great. My fear of that is so great that I now make it a habit to try to marry those risks fears that I have with risks that I can take within my comfort zone, risks that I can take and sort of overcome it, both in work and in life and in. I also had the privilege, although at the time it seemed like a challenge, of bringing motherhood into my life in alternative ways. And at the time, it just came with pure conviction that my goal was to be a mom, and pure fear that, how does it happen, and when does it happen, and what does that mean? I was an older mom, and so that to me was, for me, a big fear that I hope I'm navigating well. They'll be the judge.
This is true. Thank you for sharing that fear. Well, we only have 20 minutes 6 left.
Sure.
So if you could go back and change your career, would there be any, if you went back in your career and you could change something, what would it be?
I would have known earlier in my life how to ask myself probing questions. I might not have known answers more, but I took a very traditional path. I went to school, I studied communication and got a degree in undergraduate in Boston, and then I went to get some life experience working, and then I went to graduate school and got an MBA, and I wasn't owning those goals. And I think if I could do something differently or advise the younger self in me to do it differently, it would be to go a little deeper and ask myself more probing questions so that I could take some risks that I avoided taking earlier in life that I'm taking now and haven't lost. But it's certainly, in my 30s, I took a 3-month sabbatical and traveled to Southeast Asia.
Oh, I'm sorry,
So
we're out of
that's okay.
time. Sorry,
That's
thank
good.
you so much.